1. Fertilization. Fertilization marks the beginning of pregnancy. It occurs when a sperm cell from the father joins with an egg, ovum, from the mother, typically in the fallopian tube. Sperm meets egg. When sperm enters the vagina during intercourse, it travels through the cervix and into the uterus to reach the fallopian tubes. If an egg is present, one sperm penetrates the egg, and the genetic material from both combines, forming a fertilized egg called a zygote. Chromosome combination. The zygote contains 46 chromosomes, 23 from the mother and 23 from the father, determining the baby's sex, eye color, and many other inherited traits. 2. First week. Zygote and early development. After fertilization, the zygote undergoes several divisions as it moves down the fallopian tube toward the uterus. Cleavage. The zygote divides rapidly into multiple cells, forming a structure called a blastocyst. These cells begin to specialize into two types. Trophoblasts, the outer cells that will form the placenta. Inner cell mass, the inner cells that will develop into the baby. Implantation. The blastocyst reaches the uterus and embeds itself into the uterine wall, endometrium, starting the process of implantation, which occurs around days 6 to 10. 3. Week 2-3. Embryonic development. After implantation, the cells continue to divide and specialize, and the embryo starts to form. Formation of basic structures. The early embryo begins to develop 3 layers of cells, each of which will give rise to different body systems. Ectoderm becomes the skin, nervous system, and sense organs. Mesoderm forms muscles, bones, cardiovascular system, and kidneys. Endoderm develops into the digestive system, lungs, and other internal organs. Heart formation. The primitive heart starts to form around the 3rd week and begins beating by the end of the week. 4. Weeks 4 to 6. Major organ development. By week 4, the embryo is about the size of a poppy seed, and its basic body structures begin to take shape. Neural tube formation. The neural tube, which will develop into the brain and spinal cord, closes by the end of the 4th week. Heart and circulatory system. The heart develops further and starts circulating blood. Limb buds. Small bumps that will eventually become arms and legs appear. Facial features. The beginnings of the eyes, nose, and mouth become visible. 5. Weeks 7 to 8. Organogenesis. This is the phase when the basic structures of the body continue to develop and differentiate into recognizable forms. Limb development. Arms and legs elongate and begin to form hand and foot plates. Facial features. The face becomes more defined, with nostrils, eyes, and the beginning of a mouth and chin. Organ development. The brain, liver, and kidneys become more complex and functional. 6. Weeks 9 to 12. End of the first trimester. At the end of week 12, the embryo is now called a fetus. Fetal growth. The fetus is now about 2.5 inches long and weighs about half an ounce. Sex differentiation. External genitalia start to form, although it is still too early to determine the sex via ultrasound. Reflexes. The fetus may exhibit some reflex movements, though the mother may not feel them yet. 7. Weeks 13 to 16. Second trimester begins. During this stage, the fetus undergoes significant growth, and more complex body systems begin to develop. Size. The fetus grows to about 4 to 5 inches long and weighs 2 to 4 ounces. Facial development. The facial features become more distinct, with eyelids covering the eyes and ears moving into position. Movement. The fetus begins to move more, and some mothers may feel these early movements, known as quickening. Skeletal development. The bones harden, ossify, and the fetus begins to develop a more recognizable human form. 8. Weeks 17 to 20. Development of sensory systems. By the end of the 20th week, the fetus is about 10 inches long and weighs about 10 ounces. Hearing. The fetus begins to hear sounds, including the mother's voice, external noises, and heartbeats. Skin. The skin is translucent and covered with lanugo, fine hair, and vernix, a protective coating. Sex determination. If the fetus is in a position that allows for a clear view, ultrasound can now determine the sex based on genitalia. 9. Weeks 21 to 24. The viability stage. At this stage, the fetus is developing more advanced structures, and some important milestones are reached. Size. The fetus grows to about 12 inches long and weighs about 1 pound. Lung development. The lungs continue to develop, although they are not yet capable of functioning outside the womb. Skin. The skin is wrinkled and covered with vernix and lanugo. Sensory abilities. The fetus can taste amniotic fluid and respond to light and sound. 10. Weeks 25 to 28. Third trimester begins. The fetus continues growing rapidly and its organs become more refined. Size. The fetus is about 14 inches long and weighs around 2 pounds. Lung maturity. The lungs continue to mature, but they still require further development for independent breathing after birth. Brain development. The brain's surface becomes more complex, with grooves and folds forming. The fetus may start to exhibit patterns of sleep and wakefulness. 11. Weeks 29 to 34. Rapid growth. The fetus continues to gain weight and size rapidly, and the body begins to take on the appearance of a full-term baby. Size. The fetus can weigh between 3 to 5 pounds and measure about 16 to 18 inches long. Fat accumulation. The fetus begins to store fat under the skin, which will help with temperature regulation after birth. Nervous system development. The brain continues to grow, and reflexes like sucking and swallowing become stronger. Lung and digestive system development. The lungs are maturing, and the digestive system is ready to process milk. 12. Weeks 35 to 40. Final development. In the final weeks of pregnancy, the fetus undergoes fine-tuning as it prepares for birth. Size. The fetus is typically 19-21 inches long and weighs 6 to 9 pounds, although there can be variations. Mature organs. The lungs and brain are fully developed, and the baby is capable of functioning outside the womb. Movement. The baby is still moving, but space is becoming more limited as it grows larger. The baby may rotate into the head-down position in preparation for birth. Skin. The vernix and lanugo disappear, and the baby's skin becomes smooth and firm. 13. Birth. At full term, the baby is ready to be born. Labor and delivery involve the mother's body going through a series of contractions that help push the baby through the birth canal. The baby is born, and the umbilical cord is cut. The newborn begins to breathe air, and the transition from fetal life to life outside the womb begins.